Well, good morning from the middle of the Barron Glacier. It's 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday the 4th of September, I think. We've been walking for 2 hours through landscape like this, ice cliffs covered with lots of rocks. It's not the most pleasant way to spend 2 hours early in the morning, but another 2 hours and we should be at our base camp.
Base camp was at 5,420 metres on the Barron Glacier, a desolate moraine of ice and rock in the heart of the Himalayas.
But it's been quite difficult to get a reasonably flat and level surface among all these rocks.
Some manual grading of the terrain was necessary before kitchen, mess and sleeping quarters were erected.
Well, that one's almost full. This one here's up on full, so that's great.
Solar panels and petrol generators, Walkmans and video cameras were all part of the caravan.
I think I better stay away.
With Makalu towering over them, this would be home for the next 2 months.
Whoa! This man is a rapper!
It's a disco popper! Well, I've got here. Had a real struggle getting up the last day to this altitude. Jane Stokes breathing the night before. Bit hoarse.
Jonathan Lester was showing the typical signs of altitude sickness. All the team was affected to some degree, a result of the high altitude, low oxygen environment. The effects would become more pronounced higher up the mountain, and they'd need to spend at least 3 or 4 days acclimatising to the conditions at base camp before doing any serious climbing. When they did, they'd make their ascent along Makalu's west ridge, a narrow spine of ice and rock that runs 2 kilometres into the vast west face and up to the summit plateau, 3,000 metres from base camp to the top. Only 8 people have reached the summit via the West Ridge since the first ascent in 1971, and 2 of them died on the descent. An Australian, Mark Moorhead, and a New Zealander, Bill Dents, were also killed on the route in 1984.
That's why I guess there's a little bit of worry there, because I mean, if someone that good can make a mistake, well then you can also make a mistake.
Thorough preparation and the right equipment keep the odds in your favour.
Essential for survival up high, keeping your toes warm, for keeping your toes basically.
They expected to start up the mountain in a few days, weather permitting.
And last night we had a very fine dusting of snow over everything. It makes the whole mountain range look like something out of a fairy tale. And while it's not that cold, this little bit of snow will certainly inhibit us from starting to climb.
We've got some German visitors.
5 minutes away.
Eat up, guys.
A 4-man German team were also tackling the ridge.
We thought we established one camp on 6,100 meter.
At top of the moraine side.
Given the confines of the route, it made sense for the 2 groups to work together.
We have one Saleva tent we want to establish in Camp 1.
They'd share the lead climbing and any rope fixing needed to secure the route.
So we need one tent for his shoes.
They'd been at base camp for 6 days when they set out on the first load carry to Camp 1.
So this is the west ridge of Makalu, as seen from base camp. On the right hand side of the picture you can see the rock scree slopes that lead up to Camp 1. Camp 1 itself is invisible behind the rocky high buttresses.
The size of the mountain meant they'd need to establish 4 camps on their way to the summit. There'd be about a day's climb between each once they'd been established, and that would be hard work. The exposed nature of the route required ropes to be fixed on steep and difficult sections to safeguard the climbers, particularly to prevent them from being blown off the ridge. Camp 1 was occupied in a few days, but they didn't have it to themselves.
I cannot believe that a crow can pull those tents. And look at this rope was on top.
Each camp would need to be fully stocked as the route to the next camp was being fixed. The expedition's capacity to keep its lead climbers fully provisioned would be critical to reaching the summit.
What you can see down there is Camp 1. It consists of 2 tents perched at 19,500 feet, right at the start of the snow ridge proper. Usually it takes about 2¼ hours to 3 hours to walk up there from base camp. And again, usually what will happen is some of the climbing team will go up there the night before, and then early in the morning they'll head on up to Camp 2. This way it's a good staging post.
The German Camp 1 was over the other side of the ridge, the two routes meeting up at the top of the first snow dome, which was avalanche prone.
So when the weather gets really bad, the only thing to do is to sit it out at base camp or at Camp 1, it being too dangerous to go up the snow slope to the top of this dome.
Soup. Yes, what a good idea. Do you want to plug that in there?
The teams coordinated their efforts by radio
6 ropes to Camp 2.
and were optimistic of quick progress along the ridge to Camp 2 on the main body of the mountain. The route was testing, a long, steep, wind-exposed sawtooth, less than 1 metre wide with an 800-metre drop on either side.
It's about 1 kilometre distance along this snow line, and often there's very high winds and deep snow, which makes it a dangerous place to be. Accordingly, what we've done is fixed ropes the full length. These fixed ropes can be clipped into, and if by chance a foot slips, a hand comes off, or the whole body gets blown down the slope, it's not the end of everything.
Over this vertical abseil, and the weight of a pack just somersaulted me backwards.
Yeah, just what you need at the end of a hard day.
It was a bit scary in a way, but there was lots of soft snow at the bottom.
The German team was fixing ropes halfway to Camp 2 when bad weather struck.
We thought the monsoon had abated, but it looks like with this current spate of weather that perhaps we're a bit deluded on that one. Hopefully it'll calm down again in a couple of days, we can get back into it.
They'd arrived at base camp 11 days earlier and hoped to reach the summit in another 2 to 3 weeks. With winter only 1 month away, any delay was unwelcome.
Ian is just coming up to the second of 2 big domes on the ridge that leads up to Camp 2, at the base of the west ridge of Makalu proper.
Camp 2 was established a few days later.
It takes about 4 to 6 hours, depending on conditions, to go from Camp 1 to Camp 2. And above Camp 2, the west ridge rises